Good morning, and welcome to the Financial Optimist. And today I want to talk about a fantastic option to make college completely free. Now, in yesterday's video, I gave you my strategy for how I afforded college, but there's one part of the strategy I didn't talk about, and that is the military GI Bill. Because when I was in the military, I served in the National Guard for 6 years. I had access to a partial GI Bill, which helped pay for part of my college degree, but not the entire one. And so that's one of the reasons I was able to graduate college completely debt-free. Now, with that said, if you're looking to join the military, there's a few things to consider, and one is the base pay. Here this shows you an E1 private around $25,000 a year, which by comparison is about the same as minimum wage. So if you're working a minimum wage job full-time, you'll make about $25,000 per year, which isn't all that much money. And as you stay in the military for several years, you can eventually reach the rank of E4 specialist, which is about $33,000 a year according to this chart. And that's the base pay. There's also some other packages that give you some housing allowance to help you pay for an apartment, to give you some food allowance, and the exact amount depends on where you live. Some places pay you a lot less than this, some might be a little more, so it depends. But this website estimates around $47,000 a year worth of total benefits. And of course, there's also health insurance as well, which is also worth a lot of money. But you look at the total benefits, $47,000 a year. If you say you're a young 18-year-old, fresh out of high school, looking for your first job, you might think that's a lot of money. And, perhaps it is. And so if you're someone working a minimum wage job at a retail location, then $25,000 a year is about what you'll make. So if you're working minimum wage, joining the military would be a bit of an upgrade. However, there's a lot of places that don't require experience and pay lots of money. Let's say, what if you just became a regular old warehouse worker? Well, here we have $22, $23.50 an hour. Mind you, $20 an hour is about $40,000 a year, and $25 an hour is about $50,000 a year. $30 an hour is about $60,000 a year. So here we're talking about $45,000 a year. Here we're talking, $40,000 to $60,000 a year. Here a little bit less for this one. This one about $40,000 a year. This one here about $45,000 a year. So as we can see, just being a regular forklift operator at a warehouse will pay you right about the same as the military does for an E1 private. And mind you, after you stick around for several years, you typically get a bit of a pay increase. Like it says here, 20 to 30 an hour. That's usually how it works, is these are the starting pay. After a few years, you can make a bit more, especially if you get promoted to lead at the warehouse. So when you look at this money, you go, okay, a warehouse worker can make between $40,000 and $50,000 a year, and an E1 private makes somewhere in the ballpark about the same price. So thinking you could join the military or get a job at the warehouse, and it pays about the same either way. So why should you pick one over the other? Well, there's one very big difference to consider. Civilian employers pay you overtime, and the military does not. And so, if you're looking at these kind of salaries, you're thinking, it seems pretty good. Keep in mind, if you have long days, they do pay you extra. Now, for example, when I first got a job at a warehouse years ago, I was making $18 an hour, and then I got a pay raise to $20 an hour my first year. That first year, as an ordinary warehouse associate, I made $57,000 because of the overtime. So that's easily $10,000 more that first year compared to E1 private, even with all the benefits included. And mind you, both jobs include health insurance as part of the package deal as well. And so you look at that, you realize, a warehouse worker getting 40 hours a week makes about the same as the military, but consider this, the military will work long hours. I had many, many days in the military that were far over 8 hours, over 12 hours, 15 hours. Some days you start at 7 o'clock in the morning and you go all the way to 0:30, which is past midnight. That can happen. So consider all the overtime you're putting in for free. This here is a flat fee. It's a salary. You don't get any overtime there. The civilian employer does. So a warehouse worker will pay you about the same or even a little more than the military does. And consider this. The military is very, very stressful. I served with a lot of soldiers who were in their 20s and already had a lot of gray hairs. The military takes years off your life. It ages you faster. It's a very stressful job. And if you do deploy to a combat zone, it becomes very, very dangerous. Now, granted, they have hazard pay on top of that if you do deploy to combat. But keep in mind that, for a job that's as dangerous as this, as stressful as this, it pays as much as an ordinary warehouse worker, but without the overtime. So why would you consider the military over a civilian employer like this? Well, that's because there is one benefit the military can offer that the civilian employers don't, and that is tuition assistance. It's called the GI Bill. How much do you get? Well, it depends. Active duty gets a bit more, and the part-time gets a bit less. Here, for full-time soldiers, it can be tens of thousands of dollars per year. It says around $30,000 per year. And when I was in the National Guard, so I got about $370 per month during the school year. So you're talking about $3,000 per year. In my case, I got my associate's degree done first. I went to the military and then went back and finished my bachelor's degree while I was serving. And because I was in the National Guard, I can do that. Though sometimes the active duty branches don't let you go to college while serving. There are some rules on the matter. You have to talk to a recruiter about the specific details. But the bottom line is the amount of money you get for the tuition assistance and the GI Bill, it actually is a substantial sum of money. So if you're going to join the military and you're using that as a tool to go to college, it actually pays really, really well with the tuition assistance. If you're just going for the base pay and the housing allowance, you're really better off just getting a job at a warehouse somewhere. It pays about the same or a little bit more. But the main advantage of this way of paying for school is you don't have to live with your parents. Because in my previous video, when I talked about paying for college, the strategy that I was encouraging you to follow was live with your parents, go to a community college, get the first 2 years done for cheap, spend the last 2 years at an in-state university, again, staying with your parents. You can purchase a bachelor's degree for about $30,000. That's what I spent. I got roughly $6,000 from the GI Bill, and the rest of it I paid out of pocket. So the military did help to pay for my degree. I still paid most of it myself. If I was active duty, I would have gotten more money, but I didn't. So, if you want to go active duty, you can move out of your parents' house, live on a military base, serve in the military, get your discharge, go to school. And so if you do the GI Bill, it's a way of going to an out-of-state university and moving out of your parents' house while still going to school. Or you could just go in-state, stay with your parents, and pay for it that way. They're both perfectly fine options. But if you're someone that wants to go out of state, the military is the best way to make it affordable, because you can potentially go to school completely for free. Depending on how you qualify for this or that, you can get enough money to pay for your entire education. And of course, the military has a lot of rules and regulations about how they determine your eligibility. You have to serve for a certain number of years. You have to get a certain type of discharge. There's certain rules about it. But another question to ask is, okay, what if you already have the student loans? What then? A lot of people have been asking for years, why doesn't the government just offer some kind of a student loan forgiveness program? Well, the answer is they already do. The federal government has had a student loan forgiveness program in place for decades, but you have to join the military to get access to it. So for active duty in the Army and the Navy, it's around $65,000. When I was in, my recruiter told me it was $50,000, so it looks like they upped it. However, the Air Force does not currently offer this program. So again, make sure you speak to a recruiter from the specific branch you're thinking of joining. They can get you all the details you need to know, and recruiters love talking about the GI Bill. They will talk about tuition assistance all day long. It's their favorite topic. Now, mind you, if you're going to the reserves, going part-time, they offer a bit less, around $20,000 here. So if you have, only $20,000 of student loans, maybe, the Army National Guard might be better. If you're someone that has a more expensive, say around $65,000 of loans, then the active duty may be a better option for you because you get more forgiveness. Now, of course, there are terms and conditions. You have to serve for a certain number of years. They help you pay off your degree over time. It's not just free money. It's not like you sign up one day and the next day they get you a check for $65K. It's not quite that simple. And so if you're someone looking to get student loan forgiveness, the military can help. If you're looking to go to college, the military can help. You can do what I did, go to college first, join the military, go back to college, finish up a second degree. Either way, there really is no excuse to go into vast amounts of debt for college. I've now given you 2 different strategies to go to college completely debt-free. Either stay with your parents and do in-state while working part-time at college, or you can join the military and go out of state for free. There's 2 different ways to go to college free of charge. So when you hear people talking about the student loan crisis, I look at that and I go, but there was multiple options to go to school completely debt-free, and they chose to ignore all of them. So if you're someone that wants to avoid student loans, here's a fantastic option, is joining the military. But of course, it comes with some pros and cons. Do you want to join the military? Do you want to deploy to a combat zone? Do you want to choose this job or that job? There's definitely a lot of pros and cons of the military. I'm talking exclusively about it from a personal finance perspective. We're just looking at the numbers of it. I'm not really looking at most of the other aspects because I just want to look at the actual mathematics of joining the military. It can be worth it for some people, and it isn't worth it for others. But that's the bottom line when it comes to the math, how the math is calculated. So if you have any questions, drop it below in the comment section. I'd love to share more of my story with you. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.